So hello everyone, welcome back to our Facebook Live this week. This week we're going to talk about the impact of culture and climate and how you can look at retaining employees. So today I have with me Elton Woolcock from Urban Media to tell us his story in terms of how he got it right for his organization. I met Elton a couple of months ago and he was talking to me about his story, and I just thought, wow, this is a wonderful story that can be shared with our viewers. So Elton, to hand over to you, if you could just introduce yourself to our viewers and what you do, and then we can go straight into the interview from there.
Sure. So my name's Elton Woolcock, and I run a digital marketing agency and a software as a service business. So in terms of the kinds of people that we have, obviously a mix of technical people and creative people. So and that's on top of administration as well. So we have a real mix of different roles and therefore different personalities.
Okay, that sounds good. And in terms of the business that you cover?
Sorry, again, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. So in terms of, you were saying you have different personalities within the business.
Yes.
And in terms of the business, you could say that you deliver to clients. Would you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's okay. The signal's coming through very jumpy. So in terms of the clients that we work with.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so in terms of our customers, they tend to be either anything from a corporation through to smaller businesses. So again, the kind of different cultures that the organizations we work with have, they're also quite varied, although I do think where you can try and attract customers with similar culture and values, that makes a massive difference to the success of the relationship anyway. You're not trying to fight against your own values. So we do that. You know, we're building websites for them, we're doing social media, we're doing search marketing, etc. So these are things that require us to really, I suppose, become part of their team as well if we're going to deal with that kind of work. So therefore, if there's a sort of automatic cultural fit, values fit, that certainly makes doing that work more productive. If not, we just have to work with it. But it really, if you can find customers where the values meet, everything else becomes a lot easier.
Exactly. But unfortunately, I think like family, you can't
So no, this is it. And I think actually, I think the more established the business becomes, the more you can afford to be fussy.
Exactly.
So, you know, and then we get onto the subject of interviewing your customers. Well, I started the business 22 years ago, so I've been through every stage of being a one-man band through to building up a bigger organization. And in the early days, you can't interview your customers. You just need to take everyone that you can, and that's the harsh reality of that startup phase. However, the flip side is, the more you do just take every customer you can, the harder it will always be to build. So it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
You know, but yeah, certainly where you can interview your customers based first on values and culture, I think it works for, you know, it ends up working towards a better product for the customers. Easier said than done, I think, though.
I agree. I think that on the other hand, we look at employees, and I think companies often forget that the most valuable assets, employees, and ultimately without them, your business won't be around. You know?
Correct.
And I think research also shows that loyal employees, they say, work with their feet. And I'm thinking, having listened to your story, You spoke about employees leaving the organization, going off to do their own thing, and then wanting to come back.
Yeah.
How do you get them to do that? What have you done in your organization to have loyal employees like that?
Okay, so I think there's a few things. First of all, it's about being people first.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us as a company, our people are worth way more to us than our profits. Our profits come because of the people rather than the people are here because we want to make a profit. So so being people first is absolutely key. The old thing of work hard, play hard, all of those sort of cliches. We make sure, up on the board upstairs at the minute, I already know what we're doing for bonfire night. I already know what we're doing for Christmas. So we do lots of events together. And it's not just because we're trying to be hip and cool, because we're in marketing. Actually, it's deeper than that. We want to, we consider it part, we're a family. And all of those things that I'm talking about, they're about being the family, being people first. That you could take that to suggest that work comes second. And that's not really the point. It's we do better work when we feel valued. We feel valued when somebody treats us as human rather than resources. It's that horrible word again, isn't it? Human resources. Actually, if we treat our team, and that's whether you're the ultimate employer or whether you're just managing people, if you treat your team as people, as human, that far outweighs treating them as a resource. So in doing that, I think another thing comes up, which is you could either call it leading from the front, or it's also been described as sort of servant leadership. I exist within our organization to make sure that the people who work with and for me thrive and win. So my role is to make sure that they win. And if everybody within the organization thinks that way, then again, that starts to build things into the culture. So we're not here to show that we are doing a better job than our colleague. We're here to make sure that our colleague wins. And if everybody's doing that, then of course there's lots of people there making sure that you win by default. If everybody in the organization thinks that way. So there's two sort of sides to that. So first was obviously very, if you like, fun and that family piece, but the other is the style of leadership and leadership for me isn't a top-down thing. So when I say leadership, I'm meaning everybody in the organization is a leader at some point. So that's definitely important. Giving people the opportunity to grow and develop themselves. All of these things are really important. And as you said at the top of that, we've got a couple of people who came into the organization young, assumed that all organizations operate in the same way, went to find a better job, only to find out that not all organizations think in the same way, and now they're back with us. So I'm not quite sure, the challenge for businesses, how we get across the importance of culture, especially with a younger workforce, because it's something that we all really value, but we don't necessarily know the value of it till we don't have it. So it is a challenge for employers and team leaders. But it's, we find that it definitely works to provide that kind of culture people want to be part of.
I think when you spoke about being human, it just triggered something in that I did a presentation to a few people in terms of their on their journey of starting a business. Some of them, they are at the point where they have started the business, but looking at growing the business as well. And I was having a discussion in the presentation with one individual, and he asked me a question. I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I told him what you talked about. We've got this whole human resources aspect, but unfortunately, we tend to forget about the human side of things. As business owners or as line managers or leaders within organizations, we need to bring the humane aspect back into it.
Yeah.
And that's quite important. We tend to forget about how we were as an employee and how we want to be treated as an employee. And similarly, we need to think about how would our employees feel we did exactly to them what was done to us. And so
Right.
part of now, you're in your hands to change that culture.
Right.
So if you could think about you could give companies or business owners what they can implement on either changing culture and helping retaining their employees from your experience and what you've done in your business.
Okay, so number one, let's start right at the beginning. Recruit on values that match your culture. So I believe that it is almost, so I'll leave a little gap in there, but I think it's almost too late when you've already recruited somebody who will not fit your culture.
Yeah.
So turning somebody to artificially join your culture, I think is a really, really tough job. I think it's a long piece of work. So we've got to get it right at recruitment. So when we recruit now, the first interview doesn't even talk about the job.
Okay.
The first interview only talks about culture and values. And the first thing we want to understand when we're recruiting is what's the, if you like, the natural values, the natural culture of an individual. So, for us, we have our values, they're not just written up on the wall, we live those values. If we're going to live those values, and that's what really forms the culture, our number one value is belonging. So if we go back to what I was saying before, actually, you can see the belonging in that, and it comes from our top value in the business, our core values. So we're looking to recruit people who automatically have belonging as one of their core values. If we find that somebody aligns with our values, which is really what's underpinning our culture, then we can then start talking about the specific job that we have in mind that they've applied for. But literally that first interview, and we do a phone call interview before the physical one, so really it's 2 interviews. At that point, all we've spoken about is culture and values. We haven't gone on to the technical role at that point.
Okay.
So now that does it does 2 things. First of all, it checks that this person has the right culture, but also it starts to work out whether they value culture. Because if they've already had a phone interview and a face-to-face interview and not had the opportunity to talk about their technical skill, well, the people who don't really value culture at that point would have just been turned off and they wouldn't want to even come to the second interview. But the people where culture is really important to them, they're now getting quite excited by the fact that they've not spoken about the technical role and that it is so culture-led. So it kind of attracts the right person and repels the wrong person, the wrong person for us. So I think number one is all around that recruitment.
Yeah.
Number 2, pin your culture at the center of everything you do, every single day. So it's not something we're going to dust off, and have a look at every year. It's absolutely at the center of everything you do. So part of our culture is a lot of fun. We like to have fun in the business. So we've appointed a minister of fun, and her role is to make sure that we have fun. And you say, well, you shouldn't really need somebody to make sure that you have fun.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? In tough times, at the minute, for us, we're now recording on the 11th of October, and in the UK, of course, we've got this Brexit thing happening. So there's a lot of sort of uncertainty out there. And these are times when you could actually, let's forget culture for a minute and let's just focus on doing the day job. That's not what this is about. So appointing a minister of fun means when we've got too much work in and everybody's, hands to the pump, it's easy to let culture go. We'll pick that back up in a minute. Not a chance. If you're going to run this culture thing, we have a minister of fun whose job it is to make sure that we have fun.
Yeah.
And she will sense if the mood in the office is becoming too heavy because we're all just too focused on doing the work. She will make sure that we have events to do, and make sure that we do that part of our culture. So you pin it at the center of everything you do. It's on our main whiteboard. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the third one is this bit about recruiting your clients that match your culture.
Yeah.
Because to me, I would say that it's not that there's a right or wrong culture. That's not what we're talking about. We have fun at the center of ours, but it doesn't have to be fun. That's just the culture that we have.
Exactly.
And so when we're recruiting clients that align with those values, working relationships become far easier. So we want customers who, again, want to have fun.
Yeah.
Now, if we found customers where actually things were very, very serious and they wanted it to be serious, then they'd probably find us frustrating and we'd potentially find them frustrating. And it's not that they're right, we're right. It's not about right or wrong. It's just matching, so let's make sure that we match the cultures. So I would say number one, recruitment. Number two, sticking the culture at the center of everything every day. And number three, recruit customers based on culture as much as what they can bring to you financially.
I think that's really good advice that you've given in terms of the 3 tips, and I haven't thought about doing recruitment that way. And so I've learned something from you this afternoon. And I like the fact that you've got somebody that's focused, that's going to be looking at the fun in the business. So I think if you don't have somebody taking accountability for it, like you said, it will fall to the wayside.
It's just so easy to drop it when everything else becomes a priority. You need somebody who has your culture as their top priority.
Exactly. So what you shared with us now, it's quite important. I can see now the culture of the company. I can see what people want to come back that they've left. And also in terms of, I can see how we retain your current employee base that's there. You mentioned earlier about the, let's talk about the millennials, if we can use that word.
Yeah.
And for me, there's the employment contract, which is just the one aspect, and that is the black and white things of the job. But it comes back to what I call the psychological contract. And I think that's what millennials look at today. It's not about the employment contract, it's about the psychological contract. So what do you think would that psychological contract be for somebody you want to attract into your organization?
Yeah, so it's the first time I've heard it used in that term, but I think that's so right. And I always say to people, in our industry, we sign a lot of NDAs. So we end up with a lot of non-disclosure agreements. And I always say to people, by the time either of us reach for this document, it's way too late. And in the same way, if somebody's actually looking at their recruitment contract after they've got the job, something massive has gone wrong and it's going to damage both of you. However, what I think, and especially millennials, but I don't think it's exclusively millennials, but it would be right to say especially that category. What they're looking for, they are checking out every day. Because I think this is a generation where, you know, if I look at my own generation, you were just happy that you had a job. You didn't expect to have a job that gave you fulfillment. That wasn't what you did. Your job gave you a salary. It didn't give you purpose, meaning, fulfillment, all of these things. So therefore, it was probably based on a recruitment contract, a black and white contract. But now more and more people, and as I say, not exclusively millennials, but yes, probably more so, are now looking for a sense of purpose and fulfillment. All of those things that previously were never really important or considered. It's not that they weren't important, they were never considered. So now it is about that psychological contract. So that's quite a good term for it, because when we look at one of the criticisms for having a strong, well, everybody has a strong culture. It's just whether it's an accident or deliberate. But one of the criticisms for having all of this, let's say, fun in the business, that's a tangible cost to the business. If we're going and doing things, not all of our fun activities are paid for by the business, but the business shells out, you know, a good amount of money on fun. And the criticism would be, well, that's you know, that's losing you money. Okay, the flip side is if I have to keep recruiting people, that's going to cost me a lot more money. So my advice is for people to look at the whole picture. Don't look at the cost of maintaining a culture. Look at the cost of maintaining a culture versus the cost of continual recruitment. And with, and again, I try to not pigeonhole, if you like, things like millennial, but with younger people, they will move jobs a lot quicker than older people. You know, if I think back to my father's generation, they had a job for life. So things have changed very rapidly. I never expected a job for life, but I never expected to be leaving a job. Very subtle difference. You know, you'd only leave if you were really upset. Whereas actually now we've moved from that. It's a lot more portfolio careers. It's a lot more, if I'm not finding a sense of purpose in my job, if I'm not getting fulfillment from my job, I will move jobs. And often that means if there's no other job to go to, I just won't stay in an environment where I'm not fulfilled and I'm not feeling this sense of purpose. So the psychological contract is so important, and it's something that we do with every interaction. That's the other thing to note. This isn't something, again, that we write down. This is every interaction. What is your business doing? What's its sense of purpose? And how can it bring that to colleagues and to customers, suppliers? You know, how do we do that? And it's in every interaction.
Yeah, and that's so true, because it links closely to what we were speaking earlier on, the culture, but the values as well. Because individuals have their set of values, and if they feel it doesn't fit the purpose of the company and what you stand for, then they will say, this is not the environment I want to be in. When they use their feet to vote and they leave the organization. So, and I agree fully with you. And funny enough, is the discussion we had in the week as well when I presented to these young entrepreneurs, saying, get your recruitment right first time around. You don't want the revolving door effect. Because
Mhm.
think about it, it's your time being taken out of the business. Look at the time that you're out of the business times what your salary is for that period. And that's the cost related to it that you're spending each time looking for somebody to come in.
Mhm.
Whereas you could have used that kind of money to bring in business rather into the organization.
It's so true. There's so many hidden costs on top of that as well, of having people who are not switched on to the business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so often it's far more expensive to have them still in the business rather than replace them. Well, you can avoid all of that,
Yeah.
you know, and it is based on that cultural fit. You know, get that piece right, and you've got engaged staff, you've got retention of staff, you've all of these things that are really expensive to a business can actually be solved. It is worth saying that, you know, the culture, you know, I've spoken about some of the fun things we do. That's almost like the outside sign of it. Actually, it would be very easy to say, I'm going to just put unacceptable demands on the staff. I'm going to shout at the staff. Oh, but by the way, we're doing a pub quiz on Thursday. So it's not the pub quiz.
Yeah.
It's the meaning, the intent,
Yeah.
and the human connection underneath all of that. That's important. The fact that we do fun stuff as part of our culture, that's just like the gloss. That's not the primer and the undercoat. You know, that is about genuine care in the people, and that is, you know, there must be somewhere a tangible cost benefit of doing that. But if you do it only from a cost point of view, it's not genuine.
Exactly. And people will see through that so much quicker.
100%. Yeah.
Alton, it's been really good talking to you this afternoon. And in short conversation, I've learned quite a bit myself. I am going to ask, do you have any vacancies? Not for me, but I can see our viewers are going to say, what company is that we want to go and work there?
Yeah. So no, we have a good, you know, we enjoy working here. So
yeah. Just before we close off, if I have any viewers out there that's interested in doing work with you in terms of being your client, could you just go into more detail in terms of what services that you offer and how they can contact you?
Yeah, so Urban Media, so urbanmedia.co.uk is the website. We do digital marketing, and there's 32,000 other companies in the UK that do exactly the same thing. So what we would say we do differently is it's around the thinking. So we think harder about how you reach your target audience and what your target audience are looking for when they're reaching out for a company like you. So we tend to get extremely good results for clients because of that level of thinking. Again, you know, the website that we might produce or the Google Ads campaign, that's the gloss again. You know, the primer and the undercoat is the way that we think about you and your audience. So, you know, we love to work with people. You need to have fun as one of your cultural values, because we want to have fun with you as well as provide great work for you. But if that suits, then urbanmedia.co.uk is the place to go, or elton@urbanmedia.co.uk on the email.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And once again, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think everybody will be able to take something away from what they've heard today.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, we'll see you next. Thank you for joining us.